Wish away. We don't really want to. I just want to get away. Sit right next to you.
There's this idea going around that the women of today, forget it, people of today have a hard time with correction. Nobody wants to be corrected anymore. No one wants to be challenged anymore. In fact, when it comes to the church, people are running away saying, I'm church hurt, because potentially they were corrected. So how do we correct without offending? Or how do we get corrected without feeling offended?
Well, first of all, offense is going to come. You have to realize you're going to be offended.
Yes.
And I don't think that's something that you have to run away from. Acknowledge those feelings, but after you get offended, acknowledge why you are offended and express to someone that this is why they hurt you while you're still listening to their correction.
And I think that's also important because it's always about interpretation.
Yeah.
Someone could say something that's supposed to be a challenge. It's supposed to be constructive criticism, but based on where you're at mentally and emotionally, you'll interpret what they just said as an attack.
Right.
And so now I got to put my defense up and I got to tell you how you slacking. You tell me, you haven't picked up these things in a few days. You ain't cooked. You ain't cooked since Saturday. So it's so easy to be on the defense instead of saying, hey, what are they saying to me? So what would your advice be to someone, let's just say on the receiving end of correction? How would you advise them to prepare their heart for someone challenging them or to correct them?
Well, for one, look to see where the truth is for what they're saying. A lot of times when someone corrects us, like you just said, we're so quick to throw back something. If someone throws something to us that hurts, it's like, I threw the ball at you. Now I'm going to toss it back. This is not a game of kickball where we are both trying to see who can knock each other down.
And if you're primed to say, just put yourself in correct, proper perspective. The Bible tells us that we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You are human. But if you're caught up into the delusion that you're not, you're walking around thinking that the world says that your ish don't stink. So you have some areas where you can grow. And if you're not caught up in the delusion that you're perfect, then when people come to correct you and challenge you, you'll readily receive it because you already know. I know I got stuff that I need to work on.
And another great thing about correction is it helps you mature. We all know that old person that says, I'm too old to learn new things. I'm stuck in my ways. I've been like this all my life. I'm not going to change. And we hate it. We hate hearing things like that. But that's because they were not open to correction. So when we are open to correction, it allows God to fix things and work stuff out of us that we might not see in ourselves. It's some stuff that we can see and go, I'm going to fix this. But it's another thing when someone calls it out and then we have to challenge ourselves to show up for ourselves.
Absolutely. I want to bring it to us and be transparent because I remember there have been times that I've challenged you. I've brought stuff to your attention and I've said, hey, look, in this area, I need to see you step up. I want to see you do more. I want to see you grow in these areas. And there's been some times that it may have been taken the wrong way or I may have said things the wrong way. So what would your advice be for someone who is giving correction, who wants to help somebody else?
Well, I think one thing when you give correction, make sure you give a compliment with it.
No, that's real though.
It helps.
That's real.
Because if you are just correcting me and then overlooking the things that I have done in that area, I feel like you're really just criticizing me and not trying to see me do better.
That's so, and you know what? That brings me to this point. For you who see something in somebody else, that's the Bible talks about. First of all, deal with the log that's in your eye before you try to nitpick the speck that's in somebody else's. Because by default, we by nature are negative. We see negative first and we hold on to negative longer. So if we could prime ourselves, especially if you really care about someone, you want to make them better, it is critiquing negatively if you don't take the time to acknowledge what they have done, what they are doing, the tone that you're using. Because like there have been times with my wife, like let's say I clean the kitchen the way I like to clean it, and she would come in and be like, "You left this like this? Oh my gosh! Don't tell me you put the dishes on this side. That don't make any sense. Put the dishes on this side." And I'm just like, "So you didn't notice that I did this, and this?" And she's like, okay.
I did notice it, but I wanted you to do it how I wanted you to do it.
Right.
And you know that when I say it out loud, I was like, dang, how controlling is that? But it makes me think about on my job when I did work for the school district, we would have team meetings.
Okay.
And the team meetings were called team meetings, but it was about correcting each other in the areas that we think we can grow.
Wow.
But what was very essential about those team meetings was they would also say, how can I help you do better in this area? So I worked with kids with behavioral problems. And if we came in and we were doing something that was not working, our team lead was to come on the job and monitor us. And instead of just critiquing us, she would also say, how can I help you with what I'm giving you to do better with?
And that's Jesus Christ. Thank you for that. John chapter 15, Jesus begins with, I am the true vine. And my Father is the husbandman. You are the branches. You cannot do anything without me. And he's calling the branches to be fruitful. And he says, if any one of you are not fruitful, then you're getting cut off. But those of you who are fruitful, I'm going to prune you so that you're even more fruitful. The beautiful thing about Jesus, when he calls us into fruitfulness, he also gives us the Holy Spirit that comforts us, that helps us to be fruitful. He doesn't just say, be fruitful. He says, nah, I'm the vine. You can't do nothing without me. I'm going to help you. I'm going to build you up. I'm going to give you the strategy. I'm going to give you the tools to be fruitful. So I think that's great, even to develop the strategy to create a culture of positive and fruitful change in your household and growth. Then if you're going to challenge someone, are you willing to sacrifice to help them in that area? If you're willing to challenge someone, are you willing to be there in the process? Or do you just want to see them get better while you sit back, eat your popcorn and watch them do better? Nah, like if my wife wants me to do better in the kitchen with organizing, guess what she does? She comes into the kitchen
Now.
And we work together and we do that stuff together. So if you're not willing, like even some of y'all husbands, y'all like, you need to lose some weight, talking to your wives. That's not, first of all, you don't approach your wife like that, especially if she had your children, come correct. But if you want to see your wife do better, are you willing to run with her? Some of y'all be like, nah, I'm on weights and she's slow and she slows me down. Are you willing to sacrifice your pace so that you can help your wife? Are you willing to do a second session in the gym with your wife so that you can walk it out with her? That's what Jesus did. He laid down his life and he gave himself up for his bride so he could see her become purified and without spot and blemish. And if you're not willing to do that, especially as men, you got to lead in what challenge and correction looks like. Pruning doesn't just look like cutting. It looks like paying attention. It looks like being self-sacrificial, taking time, taking investment and pouring it in to what you say you care about and love.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I don't think everything needs to be corrected.
Ooh.
We'll just use the kitchen, for example. You still don't clean how I like. But
I be doing a little bit though.
You've gotten better over the years. But the areas that you do not get that I like you to get, I just come down and I wipe it off.
Wow.
I say, okay, if he don't know how to put the plates in the order, I want small to big. If he don't know how to do that, I'll come back and put small to big. But I'm happy that you wash the dishes. So everything doesn't have to be corrected.
Well, it's because we judge people based on who we are.
Yeah.
So if they don't do it how we want, if they don't apologize how we want, if they don't say it how we want them to say it, then it's never right. So we don't have any room for grace. We don't have any room for them to be themselves in the process. And if they don't have room to be themselves, then there's no grace for growth. There's no patience for growth. So I love that you say that, because it's not the fact that everything doesn't need to be corrected, but everything doesn't have to look the way we want it to look.
Adjust yourself.
When we want it to look, how we want it to look. I have a poem that I wrote. It was about colonizers.
Oh,
right.
Yes.
You could look it up. I think it was called, I don't remember what that piece is called. It was called something that had to do with colonizers. I'll put the link in the description. So in that piece, I talk about the way, God, when he created Adam and Eve, he was the ultimate God that established what it looked like to create people, to give them what he had so that they could be the best that they could be according to his standard. But we try to be God. And when we try to be God, we become just like colonizers. Those men from the 1200s and the 1300s that went to other countries and gave them their own ideas, gave them their own language and say, I want you to be better because you're taking my idea. You're going to be better because you're using my intelligence. You're going to be better because I've given you my culture, but you're not God. You don't have the heart that he has. Yeah. So when you come and you try to impose yourself on others, even in a marital situation, you guys are one, you still are two distinct essences of beings that have come together. That's why it's so beautiful. So to try to judge your wife based on who you are, you don't really love her. You love you. You don't really want to see the best in her. You want to see you in her. And because you're not God, you have to give grace to allow your spouse to be who they are. And you come alongside them and add the good that you have that makes them better.
Yeah. And the last thing, I mean, it's a lot of last things I could say. You're never done with it. I always look at it as whenever I hire someone to help me with something that I'm doing on social media or bringing on somebody to my team, it's going to come a time where I'm not going to like their performance.
Wow.
And I ask this question before they join my team. How do you want me to correct you?
Ooh.
Because I'm not looking to offend them. And if I need to say your performance is not up to par with what I want, how do you want me to correct you so I don't offend you? So that way you can continue performing in the way that is thriving to better this establishment.
Yeah, we don't do that enough to have conversation on what your expectations are. And that's sometimes a difficult conversation to have. And sometimes you'll only find out in the midst of doing it wrong.
Yeah, because you can always be correcting somebody and they're getting offended because the way you're saying it, because the tone, the time that you did it.
Absolutely.
So you need to always acknowledge, hey, do I need to be a little bit more gentle with what I am approaching them with?
I love that. I love that. So hopefully you got some gems out of this. Man, be gracious, be patient with others. Don't impose yourself to that extent. Be helpful, be self-sacrificial and serve. And you'll see that your drive to see someone better through correction and through challenge, you will make yourself better and they'll be better and the whole environment will be better in the end.
Yeah,
Love that.
That's good.
Yeah.